2. King Alonso and Antonio were fast asleep on the beach, but as Ariel's magic began to recede, Antonio rose from his slumber. He was groggy from the magic, and cross that he was now stranded on this island because of a treacherous boat ride the king had made him embark upon. Kind of ironic, don't you think? Antonio looked at the still slumbering king, and villainous thoughts began to bubble and boil in his brain. What if the king were never to wake? Perhaps if King Alonso's brother were in charge instead, there would be no more excursions across the sea. As Ariel finished removing his charms, and the king slipped his bonds of sleep, Antonio's fantasies fled his mind as quickly as they had entered. Perhaps it was just the sun and the near drowning getting to him. Perhaps it was just his ferocious hunger affecting his thinking. Either way, he shouldn't be thinking such thoughts. Act 3. Antonio wasn't alone in his ravenous desires, though. When King Alonso awoke, he too was starving. It was as if their hunger had magically materialized 100 times stronger than a moment before. And the smells! Where were those magnificent smells coming from? How disappointed these two would be if they knew there was no feast at the end of those smells, but only the meddling of magic. You see, Prospero had instructed Ariel to lead the king and his brother around the island, chasing after whiffs of the most delectable delights. The smells were nothing more than another testament to the powerful magic of Ariel and plotting of Prospero. Miranda looked through her father's spyglass and frowned. "Father, why would you do that to those poor men?" Prospero told her that they were the very men who had put them on this island, and he had been waiting for this day for a dozen years. Miranda shook her head, unsure what to think. "Do not fear for these shipwrecked men," said Prospero. "They are unharmed, and shall remain so. Why, even their clothes are as fresh as the day they first set sail. Now, my dear, leave me in peace while I decide how this day shall end." Miranda had never seen this side of her father before. She was shocked at the story of her uncle's betrayal, but frightened by her father's powerful magic as well. She trusted him, but she did have one question for him before she left. "Father, why have we been on this island for so long, when your magic seems to be powerful enough to have built us a ship and sailed us home?" That was an excellent question indeed, and one Prospero hadn't actually thought of before. Act 4. Prospero sat down on a rock and contemplated the last 12 years. It had been wrong what his brother had done to him. Antonio had all but sentenced Miranda and Prospero to death when he put them in that boat. However, Prospero loved his daughter more than he wanted revenge on his brother. For Miranda's sake, Prospero could forgive Antonio. She would never have a normal life here on this island. It was time for Ariel to bring King Alonso and Antonio back to Prospero's beach. Prospero called for Ariel and ordered him to bring the shipwrecked crew to him at once. Act 5. Ariel flitted across the island and returned with the exhausted, starving, and disappointed Antonio and King Alonso trailing behind him. Though Prospero was still angry with his brother for what he had done, as he saw these miserable men trudging towards them, all he could think was that it was time to reconcile. As Ariel presented the shipwrecked men before his master, Prospero's heart began to change. He was ready to put an end to this day and the past 12 years. He was ready to give Miranda a new future. It was time to return to Milan. First, it was time to reveal the truth to the stranded nobles. Gentlemen, announced Prospero, I am the magician who has brought you to this island. The two men crouched in fear as Prospero stood and raised his magic staff over his head. I have made magic too important for too long, and I am sorry, declared Prospero as he shattered the staff over his knee. With the source of Prospero's magic gone, the skies cleared, and the two men immediately recognized Prospero. Brother! Cried Antonio with fear in his voice. Prospero approached Antonio and embraced him. What you did to me was wrong, brother, but I want to forgive you. Antonio wasn't sure exactly what was happening, but he was happy his brother hadn't used his staff on him. Next, Prospero happily approached King Alonso. Have no fear, he told the king. Your ship and all the people aboard are well. Prospero called for Ariel and asked him for one last service, to wake the crew and bring the mended ship to shore so everyone could sail home. Prospero set Ariel free from his servitude and apologized for saving him from a tree only to make him work for all these years. Ariel forgave Prospero and promptly disappeared with a pop. At first, Prospero's anger began to boil back up when King Alonso asked why he hadn't used his magic to sail home after all these years on the island. But he conceded that it was a very good question that had recently been brought to his attention. He admitted it would have been better to have used his power for good and not revenge. They all climbed aboard the king's ship, and Prospero used the last drop of his magic to call up a strong but gentle wind as they set sail on a swift yet peaceful journey home to Milan.
The end. On the next slide, you're going to answer what caused Prospero to change his mind about revenge on his brothers and using his magic. And on the slide after that, you are going to answer what is the theme of this play.